Hello, I'm Paul Andrews from G4 Guitar School, Ashford, and welcome to tonight's webinar. Over this series of webinars, we've been looking at the 7 essential guitar skills, and tonight we're looking at skill number 5, which is rhythm. If you have any questions along the way for this webinar, please drop in the box below this video, and I'll answer them at the end. Right, so rhythm, and with guitar playing, we're really talking about the right hand here. So when I'm talking about rhythm, I'm really talking about strumming. And it's probably one of the most essential skills a guitar player can have, because your rhythm is really what's going to drive a song along. If your rhythm's weak and you find you're missing strumming or it's very awkward, you're coming away from the beat, you're basically going to hold back the band if you're in a band. If you're playing and accompanying yourself, it's going to feel very kind of detached and awkward. So it's definitely a skill that should be developed to a very high standard. To give you an idea, if you look at players like someone like B.B. King, he only really plays a few notes. He's not known for, blasting over the neck and his kind of speed or anything like that. He's known for his great phrasing and his great rhythm playing. He'll take just a couple of notes, but it's the way he expresses himself in those notes. It's the rhythm he uses, which just makes the phrase sound great. Another example, we take kind of like an easy song, like maybe Horse with No Name. It's only got 2 chords. And you think, well, those 2 chords sound a bit naff, 2 chords. But as soon as you put the rhythm in there, it starts to sound a bit more funky, and it basically gives that song its great sound. So you're going to have something that's very simple, but add a funky rhythm, something a little bit of interest, and it really makes a song stand out. So again, that's why the rhythm is so important. It's not really, again, we're kind of going away from this left hand. It's the right hand that's going to basically make the interest of the song. A great example of that is if I play a few chords with a very solid rhythm, but kind of fluff a few of the chords, you can kind of get away with it. So I'll show you what I mean. So you can see I was kind of getting late putting the chords down. A few of them I went a fret below and had to slide into it. Because the rhythm was still there driving it along, you can kind of get away with it. If I do the flip of that, if I play the rhythm weak and do the chords correct, it really messes up the flow. So for example, we'll do the same thing. It's like a... So again, I'm kind of over-exaggerating, but you get the point. The rhythm is the driving force. If we have the rhythm secure, you can be a little bit late with your chords. You can even have the open strings as you're changing to the chords to give you a bit of extra time. And it doesn't really matter. You can kind of bluff your way through it is what I'm trying to say. So if you have a very strong rhythm hand, it can basically carry you along. Okay, so what we want to go through today is basic technique for rhythm playing. We want to talk about how to really practice it efficiently, and the kind of steps you want to be taking, so how you can develop over the the next sort of months and years and so forth. So starting very basic with a technique, as I say, it's all about the right hand. As we discussed before, it's the isolation of the right hand which is going to help develop it quicker. So we don't want left hand at all. So we don't want to be worrying about even chords or anything of that for the minute, just purely the right hand. If you're actually doing a very difficult strum pattern, I'd recommend even tapping out and putting the guitar down. Rhythm is very much felt, and that's why you tap your foot along to a song. You want to feel it. It's kind of instinctively inside us. It's kind of hardwired, this rhythm. We want to be along with the beat. We want to be tapping along. So if you can tap out the rhythm, you'll get it a lot quicker than trying to obviously strum it and trying to do 2 hands at once. So that's really the first step. Start with a tapping. If it's a complicated rhythm, if it's quite a simple one, then obviously you might want to jump that step. But yeah, we want to isolate the right hand and just really focusing at the minute on trying to get it nice and even. So as you're strumming, keeping the beats all the same speed. And when we're talking about beats, that's the musical definition of minutes or hours or seconds. You don't talk like that in music. It's not, oh, this strum pattern lasts for 1 minute. It lasts for a number of beats. And in music, you have 4 beats to a bar generally. And by 4 beats, I mean we're just going to count to 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I said the word bar. Bars are just a way of sectioning music to make it easier to understand. So I could say, right, I'm doing a 4-bar chord progression, and I'll be counting to 4 times. So I'll be counting 4 in each one of those bars, and because there's 4 bars, I'll be doing it 4 times. So I'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's really the basics of timekeeping. We're trying to find what we call the musical pulse. If you listen to a song, when you're tapping your foot along to a song, that's the pulse or the beat of the music. If we can find that, then that'll basically keep you in time. And that's what we want to try and develop through the whole of our kind of practice and technique. We want to be aware of that pulse, and we just want to start trying to develop that. So something to really be aware of. When we're strumming with the right hand as well, we want to keep everything nice and relaxed. It's very easy to get quite tense in the hand. And the problem with that is it will make it obviously very awkward to strum. We want it to be nice and loose. That will come across in the playing. If you're tense strumming, your rhythm is going to sound tense and it's going to sound awkward. If you've got a nice loose wrist and your strumming is nice and smooth, it's going to sound like that when you're playing. So it's basically going to translate in how you're playing it with how your arm feels. With that in mind, we want a nice, say, loose wrist. You want to be able to do that. You want the motion to basically come from the wrist. From the elbow as well, it'll probably be a combination of both, but what you don't want is it from the elbow, so you're kind of stabbing the strings like a scene out of Psycho or something like that. You want to carry it nice and loose from the wrist and your elbow just kind of supporting the movement, not coming from the elbow. I'll say if you're hacking the strings, it's going to sound like you're hacking the strings, and it'll sound very forced and probably not very nice. So yeah, from the wrist is where we want to be going there. And the next step really, as I was saying, trying to get into the beat, trying to get into the swing of the music, is trying to tap your foot or nod your head. If you see a musician play, very rarely will they be sitting there still, motionless. They'll have something keeping the beat. They'll have like your foot tapping, as I say, or your head nodding. That's basically your internal metronome kind of taking over. And the more you practice this, and the more you practice with a metronome, the better you'll get at keeping a time, keeping a beat. So we want to get that foot tapping. The only thing to be aware of is perhaps not the leg tapping or foot tapping that is supporting the guitar. Obviously, if you're tapping your right leg, which is supporting the guitar, you're going to be doing this and chasing guitar as you're trying to strum. So you might be best obviously with the left leg if you're right-handed, or supporting the obviously guitar on your right leg. That being said, you could do it from the toes down. That won't have much movement. So it's something to experiment with. Some people just find it easier with the right leg. So by using your toes and doing that, but not going from, using your heel and tapping your toes rather than tapping the heel, you find there probably won't be much movement, so you won't have that problem. So that's the first step. We want to have a nice steady beat with the foot, and the 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If we can establish that steady beat consistently, then that will then keep us in time. So that's the first goal of the technique, is to establish a steady beat. So just to recap, we want that right hand nice and even. So as we're strumming, it's down, it slightly tilt your hands so the string, the plectrum just strokes the strings, if you like, and as you come back up, it tilts again. You don't want to be having it 90 degrees pointing at the strings, so it's going to rake through it and not sound too nice. So try and go with the strings. You're just brushing the strings on the way through, trying to get all 6. It's trying to get that evenness, as I say, of the strum. The number 2 was trying to strum from the wrist and the elbow, but mainly from the wrist, keep it nice and smooth. And number 3 was foot tapping. So get that foot tapping, getting your 4 beats to the bar. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just to go over one other thing, which I didn't actually mention, with the hand, you can kind of think of it like a tick-tock kind of motion. TikTok, I've kind of stolen from Mark McKenzie, Mark the Guitar Guy on YouTube, who mentioned it as a TikTok, which I thought was a really nice way of explaining it, because it's like the pendulum of a clock. Tick-tock, tick-tock. If you can think of that, tick-tock, tick-tock. Again, it's a great way of getting that nice and even strum pattern. So getting your rhythm nice and smooth and even. So the tick-tock just means tick-tock, tick-tock, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Getting that hand nice and even. And trying not to do it too high there and too low there. Trying to cross the strings the same distance up and down. And then you can make that narrow and you can make that wider, depending obviously how quick you're doing it. Okay, so that takes care of the technique. Moving on to more of the practice now, we're going to actually start looking at how we're going to strum. So I've been doing different combinations up till now, but now we're going to break it right down. The first step is just doing your 4 down strums. So when we're counting our 1, 2, 3, 4, or our 4 beats in the bar, we're going to just strum down on those 4 beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's really quite a nice basic one to start with, your 4 down strums. That'll work really nice in a tune just to start off with. As I'm doing that, down motion, my foot's also going down. So it's just following the hand, again, keeping that beat. You can see my head's nodding as well. Everything's trying to keep this kind of pulse going. And as your hand comes up, your leg or foot, sorry, actually comes up as well. So it's like they're tethered. You go down, you come up, you go down, you come up. So it's just trying to make sure everything's in time. You don't want your hand going down, your foot coming up, your hand going down. So you're all kind of out of sync. It's trying to make sure it's all consistent. So that's the first thing, these what you call quarter notes. So we're strumming 1, 2, 3, 4. Reason they're called quarter notes is because we have 4 in a bar. We're doing a quarter of the bar each time. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's the first thing I recommend doing, your 4 down strums. Second one, to make it a little bit more interesting, is I did say our hand comes up, and at this point we're not actually connecting with the strings when we do that. So the next thing we can do is to start connecting with the strings. So as we come up, make that into a strike or a strum. So we have down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. If we're counting that, we're actually now strumming twice per count or beat. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4. To make that a bit more even, we can say and in between the counts. So then we know when we should be coming up. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and they're called our 8th notes. The 8th notes because, again, each one's taking an 8 for the bar. We have an 8 in the bar. And 8th notes are very common. So just go over that again. We're going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we're going down on the beat, which is when we're saying 1, 2, 3 and 4. And we're coming up on the off beat, which is in between the counts. So the ands. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so beyond that, we can then start mixing up our quarter notes and our 8th notes. At the minute, we've just done a whole bar of the 4 downs, so the quarter notes, or a whole bar of the 8, the down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. What we could do is start to mix those up. So we could, for instance, do half the bar as quarter notes, 1, 2, and the second half as 8th notes, 3 and 4 and. So we have 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. Once you start doing this, you'll see there's a lot of combinations you can use just for those 2 simple patterns. So we could start the first half of 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3, 4. We could start the first beat and the last beat as 8th notes, 1 and 2, 3, 4 and. We could do the middle 2 beats as 8th notes, 1, 2 and 3 and 4. We could just do 1 beat as 8th notes, 1 and 2, 3, 4. So you see there's quite a lot of combination you can do, just those kind of basic patterns. And again, taking a simple chord progression, which I might do horse no name, just the 2 chords, we can get something that sounds a bit more interesting now, just for those kind of few strums. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I always recommend doing this strum pattern just to get into kind of the flow of a tune. Just try and do your 4 beats, you can establish where the pulse is, and then start trying to bring in the strums. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Now 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Now 1, and 2, and 3, 4. 1, and 2, 3, and 4. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Now 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Now 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. So you can see I'm just establishing that pulse, getting those 4 beats, it's nice and secure, and then just really improvising. When you know those 4 beats where they are, then you can start putting in these ups in between and having a bit of fun. And that's really the stage we want to get to, where we're so confident with that beat, we're so in kind of tune with that beat, we know where it is, then we can start really taking advantage of that with the right hand. So once you've established those counts, we can basically fill in the gaps in between them, is what I'm trying to say. Right, so we've done our quarter notes, we've done the 8th notes, we've talked about then how to develop those by putting those together. One thing I haven't discussed yet is actually rests. What we've talked about in a minute is just strumming. There is what we call rests, which, as the name suggests, is where you're not strumming. And you'll hear this in tunes or in songs when you have a song. And you can hear there's a gap there between my strums, and that's called a rest. So you could strum like a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And to create that rest, all I'm doing is simply stopping the strings from vibrating, stropping the strings from making any sound. And that's just taking my right hand and touching the strings ever so slightly. So not doing it too hard. I get a percussive kind of sound. Just doing it lightly enough that it stops the vibration of strings, so they will kill the sound basically. And again, that can be put on any of the numbers, any of the counts. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4. So you can just keep, again, mixing it up, just try and put in these gaps on those beats. If you're feeling really brave, you can try and put in the gaps in the off beats in between. So like a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So that gets obviously a little bit more interesting and a little bit more tricky. But these are all things just to work on. So we've got the quarter notes, we've got the eighth notes, and then we've got basically the rest as well, and to then start combining those. So we're doing quite a lot here, and it's just trying to establish that beat and then start playing around the right hand. Be aware of your counting, and then start trying to make it a bit interesting with some of these combinations. So that's how I'd say to start practicing. Get that beat established, try and work from metronome. That's something I haven't actually stressed a lot at the minute, but we need to. Rhythm, you really want to be working on that metronome. Hand sign in the background up. So you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, trying to stay in time with that kind of click. That'll make sure that you are in time with a beat and you can stay consistent with, I say, a tempo. So make sure you're doing this for a metronome. Start with maybe about sort of 60. Gauge that. If it's too quick, obviously make it slow. If it's too fast, too slow, then make it a little bit faster. Use it as a gauge, and don't make it too obviously complex so you find you're making mistakes. You don't want it too slow that you find it too easy. You want a bit of a challenge. So yeah, something I forgot to say actually. Practice, make sure it's with a metronome. Start with those quarter notes, then start bringing the ups, and then finish with combining. Okay, where to go next is then to start actually looking at different types of rhythms. So we talked about the eighth notes. What I really want to do is give you a rhythm to kind of play around with. And this rhythm is heard quite a lot in different songs. It's kind of a standard pop rock rhythm, and it uses a quarter note and then 6 eighth notes. So we have the 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and is the beat I'm going to do. So 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up. Now that's not too tricky, but what I'm going to do here is make it a little bit more tricky by missing out the 3. So we're going to go down, down, up, miss, up, down, up. And when I say miss, you see my hand still goes down as if I was going to strum the 3, but I'm not connecting with the strings. The reason behind that is if we hesitate or pause, you'll find it'd be very tricky then to come back in on time. So if I do that for you, if I'm going 1, 2, and 3, and 4, you can see I have to try and get back in time again, and it causes that jolt kind of into the rhythm, which will obviously sound jolted and disengaged from what we're trying to do. So on the down, down, up, miss, up, down, 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 up, miss, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 down. So just give you a quick idea of where you can hear it. That was Hey Ya. So it's in that song. It's in so many tunes. It's such a common rhythm. Comes You Are on Nirvana. That it's just in so many songs. It works really well as a nice generic kind of rock pop strum pattern. So that's the down, down, up, miss, up, down. So as a first place to take these rhythms to the next kind of level is starting to put in misses, starting to put in these slightly different kind of accents and things like that. That's the next place to take it. And I was saying these different types of rhythms. So that's just a slight variation we looked at before with what you call a tie, where we're missing out one of the strums. Next one would be then triplets. So we've looked at just playing once on the beat. We've looked at playing twice on the beat with a 1, and triplets where you play 3 times on the beat. So we divide each beat into 3 parts. So we 1, 2, 3, 4. After triplets, you could then take that same rhythm and have a bluesy kind of rhythm. So where we're playing the triplet, but we don't play the middle one of the 3. So we have this 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's again a really nice place to take it. And you can start seeing rhythms are very stylistic. You know, that blues rhythm just sounds great. based on this triplet kind of strum pattern. After that, you can take your beat and divide it into 4 parts. So we have 16th notes. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. So you can see I'm just basically dividing down the beat. So we start off just with 1 strum per beat, 2 strums per beat for the 8th notes, 3 strums for the triplets, and 4 strums for the 16th notes. And that's the way to basically progress. Beyond that, we can then look at things called dots, which basically just elongate the notes and make it even more tricky. And as I said before, accents and things like that. And this kind of right-hand muting would be another way to take it. So there's a lot more we can do here. And then to take it further, you then combine them. So you mix in your 1 and 2. So you're mixing up all these different combinations or divisions of the beat. And we get into quite advanced kind of territory here. So I'm going to stop talking about ways you can take it. But now you have an idea. You have an idea what to search for online or to ask a teacher or kind of where you want to go next. So if you crack the quarter notes, you divide the beat into 2. So you've got the 8th notes, then triplets into 3, 16ths into 4, and then looking at ties, dots, that sort of thing, which then make it a little bit more tricky because you're really getting on the offbeat and creating what we call syncopation, which is coming right off the beat. And to take it even further, then we can look at the G4 rhythm book. Any student of G4, you can request this from a G4 teacher. If you're not a student of G4, head over to g4guitarmethod.com and you can purchase the pack, which will have that book, as well as the reading book, as well as the G4 method, and a few other little bits and pieces there to get you on track with the G4. So I'm just going to check questions and see if there has been any. Hopefully that's all kind of makes sense. And then we'll have a little bit of a recap of what we can go through. So just to recap anyway, technique was to really focus on the right hand, isolation. Always just focusing on one hand at a time allows you to focus all your attention on that hand and really try and build up the kind of skill. So if you start off with everything at once, it's going to be too tricky and you're going to get just basically frustrated. Starting with one hand allows you to isolate that hand and focus on the technique and really refine that as you go. Then we want to strum from the wrist and not the elbow. Again, it will probably be a combination from both, but try and get the most of it from the wrist. Foot tapping, so that's the main thing there. Get our foot tapping, be aware of that beat, stay consistent to that beat, and then try and strum along with that foot. Make sure they're in sync. For the practice, we want to start on the metronome. Have a metronome on around about 60. Gradually increase the speed as obviously you increase in confidence, but not too fast you find you're stumbling. We want to start off with our quarter notes. So strumming on the counts, 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to strum down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, which is when we're strumming in between the counts, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we have our 8th notes. And then we want to be looking at trying these other strum patterns, so rock strum, and combining them to start with, I should say, the quarter notes, the 8th notes, and then having to go at that rock strum I talked about, which is a down, down, up, miss, up, down, up. So it's quarter notes, 8th notes, combining with rests as well, so trying to put in those stops as we discussed, and then try and do that rock strum pattern, which is a great generic strum pattern that will work basically over everything. So that's a really good one to start with. After that is then divide the beat more, triplets, 16th notes, dots and ties. And say to get that little bit more information, head over to g4guitarmethod.com and get the rhythm book, which will sort you out. There's basically quite a few lessons there, varying degrees of skills it goes up, and it has all these different rhythms. So let's have a little look. We have, oh, I've just been logged out, which is always nice, so I have to quickly sign back in again. The joy of live webinars. Sorry guys, but I'll make sure that if we have any questions, they do get answered. And we only have one. I like that out of time sound. It sounds like every tune I've ever played. God, I need to practice more. Yeah, that's pretty much how I started as well. I was always behind the beat, very, very much so. So I'd be trying to strum along with a song and I'd find I'm not quite there and it just wouldn't sound right. And it took a while for me to click that actually if this hand is in time with the song, it doesn't really matter if this hand's a little bit late. A lot of songs you hear where they'll leave the chord a little bit early before you get to the next chord, so it gives you a little bit of a help to get to that next chord in time. So you can leave chords a little bit earlier and you don't notice it. Once it's in the actual song, in the mix, you don't hear it at all. So that's a great way of giving yourself a little bit extra time. And if you still find it a bit tricky to get to that next chord, just take out the strums. Start just with 1 strum, then 2 strums for 1, 2, then 3 strums, 1, 2, 3, and just slowly but surely working to that 4 strums per bar. And then try and bring the 8th notes, and then just say build up, but slowly, slowly, slowly. Okay, well, hopefully this has been of interest, and hopefully give you ideas to kind of take away. And next week, we're going to be looking at reading music. So if you haven't already, sign up onto facebook.com/G4GuitarAshford, where I post all the kind of news that's happening, and there'll be a link coming up so you can subscribe to this next webinar and register. So hopefully I'll see you next week, and yeah, thanks for tuning in. Cheers.